Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ashley Berg. I am Director of Corporate Relations at Habitat for Humanity of Wake and Johnston Counties. And I am so excited to share with you all the second conversation in our Women Build conversation series that we are doing now called Women Build Power Talks. This is a part of our Women Build that we do every year here at Habitat Wake. And unfortunately, since we can't be out on the build site together, we wanted a way to get everybody virtually together to have some conversations around topics that are really important to us. Thank you again for joining us. While you are here, please be sure to hit subscribe on our YouTube channel. That will alert you to any additional videos and content that we push out over the next couple of years. And we've got a lot of stuff coming up that is a lot of fun to check out. So you can stay in touch with Habitat that way, even if you can't come out to the build site. I am so excited today to share the room with these three amazing women that I am joined with on this panel. So I'm going to go through and give everybody a brief introduction and let them tell you a little bit about themselves. So first we have Priscilla Tyree Williams, PE. She is City Construction Projects Administrator for the City of Raleigh. Welcome, Priscilla.
Thank you so much, Ashley. I appreciate the invitation to join you and Tina and Christina this afternoon.
We are so happy to have you here. Priscilla, while I have you, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? You know, I know you've been connected to Habitat for quite some time, and talk about the industry that you work in.
Certainly. Thank you again. So I am a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, Sigma Tau Omega chapter, and our foundation, the Ivy Community Service Foundation of Cary, is an annual donor to the Women Build effort. So not only do we share our resources financially, but we also roll up our sleeves and we have a day when we come out and just do all that we can on the job sites. And it is a terrific opportunity to serve the community, which is what Alpha Kappa Alpha is all about. Professionally, I am the City Construction Projects Administrator for the City of Raleigh. And my team and I were responsible for the implementation of the physical construction of all the buildings except for public utilities, and which is now called Raleigh Water. And so from fire stations to office buildings, that's what we're responsible for. So construction runs in my blood. I've been doing it for over 30 years now, and that's why I'm here. I love it.
Well, we are so grateful to have you today, and we are so grateful for Alpha Kappa Alpha and the Ivy Community Group. Every year, you all come out in droves for our Women Build event, and we are so sad that we had to miss you in person this year. But I know the second we're back out on the build site, y'all be coming out in even bigger group to be out there swinging some hammers. So we look forward to it, and thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
Next, I'd like to introduce you all to Christina Coffey, who is Vice President at Lee & Associates. Welcome, Christina.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me join today.
And Christina, you also have some experience with the Women Build program here at Habitat.
I do. As I shared earlier, let's see, I found a picture of the Women Build. So let's see if I can put that up here real quick. Of what we should be doing today, building the Women Build in our pink hard hats. But fortunately for Habitat, I'm probably better at speaking than actually building. So let me put my video back on. There we go. So anyhow, I am with Lee & Associates. I'm a commercial real estate agent, and I have been in the business for 20 years in the Raleigh market. Really love it, enjoy it. And in my free time, I volunteer. And so I got involved with Habitat on the funding committee. And so my volunteer experience has been a lot with event planning and working on events. And so the funding committee focused on the annual Blueprint Breakfast as well as the Habitat home tour and the annual home tour that's usually in November. So really enjoyed working on both of those.
We are so grateful to have your energy as part of the Habitat team. And I know that, again, once we can be back on the build site, you're going to have to come back out, because the only way that you get better at working on a build site is the more often you come out there. So we'll join you. We'll make a big party of it.
I did keep my shirt, so.
Oh, you did? That's a throwback.
I wanted the pink hard hat, but I just kept the shirt, so.
I'm glad to see that you still kept it. That's awesome. It's a great shirt. We love that logo. Well, thank you again for joining us today. And last but not least, I'd like to introduce you all to Tina Subasic. Tina is a consulting architectural engineer. And Tina, you have a really interesting background. Why don't you tell us all a little bit about it?
Thanks, Ashley, and thanks for having me with you today. As Ashley said, I'm an architectural engineer in my background. I work primarily in the green building industry and with masonry products, so brick and block. I've been in the masonry industry for about 25 years or so, and the work I do now is a lot of the work I do anyhow. It's focused on codes and standards development. So the development of green building codes and different standards and provisions that builders and designers use is one of the primary focus areas I have. And then I work with producers, masonry manufacturers, like producers of brick and block and other products to not only train them, but also help them develop their own reporting in terms of health product declarations and other things that they need to be addressing concerns in the green building market. So I spend a lot of time doing that, and I've been involved. I haven't had the chance to do a women build yet, so I'm really looking forward to that. My husband and I have worked on sites through our church and through the Apostles Build group as well, and done a little bit of that. And we took a big step this past year, and after a lot of prayer and thought, we took a leap into sponsoring a home, actually. So it's going to be a multi-year process, because it's not something we're going to do in the quickly, but we're really excited about that, because we're inviting our friends and family to join us in that adventure as well. So yeah, I really enjoy our Habitat connections. I love what Habitat does, and I love the fact that Habitat builds energy efficient, really good quality homes.
I was going to say, I know that was something you and I talked about the first time we met, was all of the ways that Habitat homes are energy efficient, and it's something that we take a lot of pride in. And we know that you're gonna build that house. You're gonna hit that goal. However long it takes, you will get there, and we are going to be so excited to celebrate with you and your family and friends once you do that. There is nothing like finishing a Habitat home, and that experience is just so special. So thank you again to all of you for being here today. Today's topic is one that I think is, it's an interesting topic, but I think it's something that we probably don't talk about a lot. And so, given the construction industry historically has always been fairly male dominated, we wanted an opportunity to kind of talk about, what it means to be a woman in leadership, a woman in a powerful position in an industry that tends to be male dominated. Before we dig into the questions and the topics that we're going to discuss, I do want to say that, this is obviously not the experience for every single industry, for every single woman. There are certainly plenty of industries that are primarily, led by women or have a very heavy, female workforce. But in particular, since Habitat's work is very based in these industries that are male dominated, and given our first Power Talk that we had, where we had our Director of Construction, Jessie Elmore, on to talk about being a leader in construction as a woman, we thought it would be a great opportunity to kind of dig into this a little bit. So for those of you watching, you are welcome to submit your questions through the chat box on the side. We'll have some time for Q&A towards the end of today's conversation, and hopefully we'll get to some of your questions then. So, friends, the industries that you work in, the professional groups that I know you're part of, they're predominantly male, or they often have predominantly male leadership. When you began on your career journey, was that something that you ever thought about or considered? Did it intimidate you? Did it empower you? Both? Why or why not? And Christina, I'd like to start with you.
Sure. Again, I'm in commercial real estate. And when I started on my career path, I didn't really know what commercial real estate was. I went to UNC to be a kindergarten teacher, and kind of growing up in my hometown in the 80s, I mean, most of the women I knew were either stay-at-home moms or they were teachers, and there just weren't a lot of women doing other things. So anyway, I went to UNC to be a teacher and ended up, not continuing that route. A lot of teachers had discouraged me from doing that. And so I ended up being a communications major, and came out and didn't really know what I wanted to do. So I got a job doing residential leasing for a man that owned property around Duke's campus, and then did that for a year, and then was kind of still not knowing what I wanted to do, but knew I wanted to stay in Raleigh. So I applied for jobs and ended up getting a job as a broker assistant at a commercial real estate firm. And so, really, really liked it, really enjoyed the people that I worked with. But I guess one day I looked around and I was like, the brokers I'm assisting, they're not doing anything that I don't feel like I could do. And so I ended up getting my license and proceeding with that. And so I guess I just really didn't think about it, that it was a male dominated, sector of the business. Just for stats, I mean, they did a survey a couple years ago, and in the US commercial real estate senior executives, 75% are white men, 1.3% are Black men, and 15% are women. And of those women, less than 1% are non-white women. So it is a very heavy male-oriented business. But I just feel like I've always just taken it with stride, and done all that I can do to work hard and be at the table and part of it. So what else? Did I answer all the questions?
Yes, no, you answered it. That is a stat that I did not know. So thank you for sharing that. That is a much bigger number than I thought it would be, or
Right.
I should say, a much smaller number for the number of women who are in those positions.
Right.
So,
and I found my niche. I mean, I don't know if I mentioned, I focus on retail leasing, and in retail leasing, I feel like, there's a little bit more women involved. I feel like we have a little bit better connection to shopping centers, and I think it's the best of both worlds. I get to shop and do business at the same time. So.
Well, and I mean, we would know, right? Like most women are, most shoppers are women. So we probably know what we're looking for, and, how easy it is to get from the parking lot to the door if you've got your kids with you and that sort of thing. So I'm sure that this is 100% your niche, because you're fantastic at it. And
I am good at shopping.
Yes. Well, both shopping and doing what you do in your professional career as well. But clearly those things go hand in hand. So thank you for sharing that. Tina, what about you?
Well, I went to school definitely in knowing that engineering was very much male dominated. But I always really loved math and science, and I looked at it as a challenge. And I probably would not necessarily have thought about it if it weren't for our high school physics teacher that kind of said, you ought to look into engineering, you ought to consider that. And when I found architectural engineering, it was the best of both worlds to me, because I love buildings, but I'm not that artistic at all. And so at least when I think about drawing and things like that. So architectural engineering was a perfect blend of something I love with buildings and the engineering aspects. And I focused on structural engineering, was my focus in college. And I worked as a structural engineer for a little bit when I got out before getting involved in the trade association. And I will say, I mean, it was tough being a structural engineer and being a woman, in the sense that there was one other woman engineer in the firm I went to work for, who was the daughter of the principal. And the only other women were admin, which is fine, but there wasn't a lot of camaraderie and there wasn't a lot of social interactions. I actually, when I was first starting out, took a job in a clothing store selling clothes to have something fun to do, to interact with people and all that. But after I actually got laid off in the early 90s during that recession, and I got into the masonry industry at that point, working for a trade association. And I was still the only woman professional in the office. But I loved the job because it also tapped into interacting with people a lot more, communication wise. I mean, Christina mentioned that she's a communication major. I think women can be very strong communicators, you know, so teaching and training, I got into training, I got into business writing, and all those things that really spoke to me. So it was a really good blend of the technical side of things and that more interactive, people-oriented for me. And I did that for a while. I will say when I was on a job site, you know, and I'm sure Priscilla has experienced this, who are you and why are you here? You know, but, you know, I think that has improved and certainly, you know, I've encountered my share of people that have been stereotypical in terms of males and not listening, but I've also encountered guys that have been very open and totally okay with the fact that I'm a woman engineer and what I bring to the table. And I think that's really a good thing. And I think things have gotten better over the years. You know, it's been over 30 years since I graduated, so things have evolved quite a bit, but I think we are still in the minority. But I also think it's nice, as I'm also, I will share that I am president right now of the Masonry Society, which is a professional society. And I'm serving a 2-year term. And when I first got into the industry and went to meetings, there were a couple of women there and we would have girls' night out just to engage. I think it's important to get your networking, have your allies, right? Your female allies as well. And now it's great because there might have been 5 people when we gathered then. And we even had a guy who would come who was kind of an honorary girl. He was just a great guy and he would come along. There were so few of us.
Like, you guys are really fun. I just want to hang out with you.
He was a fun guy, right? But now when we have it, there's 20 of us or more there. And we're a small association. So like, you know, we might have 100 people at it. We're still in the minority, but the number of women and younger women that have joined and become involved has been such an encouragement to me. I love that aspect, to see that growth happen.
And you have a very specific factoid about your role as president of that society.
Oh yeah, that I'm the virtual president. Is that what you're referring to?
Oh, the fact, aren't you the first female president as well?
I am the first female president. I'm the first female president, and I took over back in October of 2020. So far, I'm the first virtual president. We'll see if I actually get to preside over a meeting in person this fall. I'm crossing my fingers that we'll be back to meeting in person. But yes, I am the first female president of the organization. So.
And how long has the organization been around?
60 years or so now.
60 years for the first female president.
Yeah.
That's something. But you're paving the, I mean, I hate to use the pun, sorry for the pun, but you're paving the way for other women to do the same. So we're so excited for you. And hopefully we'll get you a plaque or something once you're done. First female and first virtual. But Priscilla, I know you probably have some similarities, like Tina said, in your career. Why don't you tell us a little bit about kind of what your experience has been?
Sure. I was the first woman of color to graduate from Syracuse University in 1986 with a civil engineering degree. So we had our first African-American, John Ricks, to finish in 1977. And it took that long for us to get a Black woman. So it has been a journey, I will say that. And knowing that there weren't people of color, very few, and even fewer women. So one of my first experiences out in the field as a student, there were 2 women, and, you know, the stories that I could tell. So I would say that it has empowered me because I went to an all-girls high school. I'm a graduate of Philadelphia High School for Girls, also called Girls High. And we were always taught to be fearless. And our school motto was, "Winked, cuisse, winked, she who conquers herself conquers all." So we pushed through. I had great support, a great professor who I still keep in touch with today, and a couple of great classmates. But it has been a journey. Things have improved in the 30 years that I've been out in the field. And I'm glad to see more women start to come out and work in the field. In engineering, they were very much trying to recruit women in the mid 80s and say, come on out here, do this work that is not traditionally something that women would gravitate to. My first pair of work boots, they didn't even make women's work boots in the mid 80s. I had to get a man's size. They were too big, too wide, but my first pair of boots, steel-toed shoes, were men's. But it has gotten better over the years. I'm glad to be on this panel with women who share this journey, especially Tina, because I know concrete is tough. Those are the people out there that are driving the truck, may have 3 teeth in their head. God bless. So, and I've lost a couple digits on their hands. So I know, I understand, but yeah, that's my story on that part.
That's amazing. I'm just so in awe of all of you and the journeys that you've been on. It's just a wonderful thing to share with not just with me, but with everybody who is joining us today. And so thank you for your candor and your honesty and sharing all of that. You know, this is not going to say, this is a question that seems silly to say, but you know, I'm curious to know what challenges, what obstacles, you know, what friction points have you discovered, especially as you've transitioned into roles that have more leadership, you know, more leadership opportunities or take on a larger leadership role. And, you know, if you have any real life anecdotes to share, we would love to hear them. So Tina, I'm gonna turn to you first.
Thanks. I think for me, honestly, I've been very fortunate as I've taken on more leadership roles, which I didn't mention. I have my own consulting business, but I'm a one-person shop, so I'm a sole proprietor. So I don't for the last, and that's been that way for about 23 years now. So I haven't had a lot of experience in terms of in an office environment, having that competition. My boss, when I was employed, was very supportive of me. But in the volunteer capacities that, you know, that I've acted in leadership roles on committees that I'm involved in, I'm chair of a work group for one of the green building standards and so forth. I would say my experience, fortunately, has been really pretty positive. In my role with the Masonry Society, for example, I had a gentleman, who was chair of a committee that reported to the executive committee, come to me and approach me. Hey, would you want to take over as chair for me? I'm moving on. I didn't even know what the committee was, but he had seen potential in me and he reached out and I took that role. And from there it evolved. And even in the path to becoming president, it was a similar experience, a different person, but another retired professor, this gentleman, had reached out to me and said, hey, would you be considered being an officer? And I knew if I took a officer position, it could ultimately, it wouldn't be guaranteed, but it could ultimately involve becoming president. And, you know, that was a scary thought, but the fact that I did have people that saw strength in me, skills that I had, you know, and offered me that opportunity, I was really blessed. So I feel like I haven't had to deal with some of those challenges the way I'm sure my friends on the screen here might have had to.
It's always good to have the alternative perspective, right? You know, at the beginning, I mentioned that this is certainly not everybody's perspective. And it certainly warms my heart to hear that you didn't have that experience. You had a really positive one, especially given, the work that you're in, the industry that you're in. And I will admit, I was a little selfishly curious to know if your transition into president of the society had any sort of friction points. So it sounds like you were boosted and lifted up by those that you work with, which is really wonderful.
Mm-hmm. It was a good experience.
Priscilla, what about you?
So I have not had the easiest route. I think being a woman and a woman of color has posed some very interesting challenges. And while they have lessened over the years, they have been consistent over the 30 years that I've done this. Fortunately, I have recognized that I no longer have to justify my existence. So before, I may have been a little timid, a little more tentative. I no longer broach things from that vantage. My greatest challenge is the ability to be heard and seen. And I worked with a gentleman many years, well, not many years ago, a few years ago, who said something to me that I will always remember. And we were at a meeting, and even though I was a director, a division director, I did not sit at the table because I was being deferential. And there were other people that were not in my position that were sitting at the table, but I was being deferential and I would sit on the periphery, almost to the point where, sit on the periphery until somebody invites you to come to the table. And then he told me that if I wasn't sitting at the table, that meant I was on the menu. And I said, got it. Got it. So I now I look at that from a standpoint of the ability to be heard. I'm thinking that what I have to say needs to be amplified by somebody else. So therefore, I place myself in that role by not sitting at the table, because I didn't think that I could be heard unless someone acknowledges that, I had something to say or it was worth listening to. So now I sit at the table. When I walk in, I'm supposed to be there. I pull the chair back and I sit at the table because I'm not going to be on the menu. But that's the challenge, the ability to be heard, the ability to be acknowledged.
I love that. I think, we're the past, probably 5 to 10 years, there's been a lot of conversation around leaning in. If anybody's read Sheryl Sandberg's book about, making a place at the table, if there isn't a chair there for you, make yourself room. And so I think that that's a really great way to look at it too, of, if you're at the table, you're on the menu. I think I need to put that on a t-shirt and hand that out to some of my friends. But it's true, right? You as a woman, I think more often than not, we are under the impression that somebody else has to give us permission to be, or permission to share our expertise and the things that we do well. And the only people we need to give permission to are ourselves, really. So I am glad that you sit at that table, and thank you for sharing that.
Can I?
And not on the menu.
Can I add to
please, absolutely.
Because what you're saying, I really can appreciate where the vantage you're coming from. And, but I will say myself, I tend to be probably too assertive. So I kind of just grabbed that chair. But I will say that I have had times when people have kind of called me things, not horrific, but kind of been like, one time I got called a bulldog. That's a nice thing to be called. But because I was being assertive. So just in terms of, I think it is important to do it. And I'm so glad that Priscilla is coming from that perspective. But I think we also have to be not afraid to be called something, or to be, you got to be strong and be so what, yes, I am, and I'm here. And I think that's an important piece of it too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Christina, what about you?
So challenges. I guess when I started in this business, I was a huge anomaly. I mean, I was young. I was 24. I was a female. I had no experience. I don't think I had really sold anything. I had waitressed, but I really didn't have any experience, and I had no connections in the business. I had no family connection. I had just no connection to commercial real estate, and so I really was an anomaly in this business because I mean, most people had those things and I didn't. So, they were wondering what I was doing there. I mean, the biggest question I got in the first, I guess, 3 or 4 years that I was in this business was people asked me, "Are you old enough to sell real estate?" And I just always thought that was funny, but I just, tried to work hard and be humble and be honest. And if I didn't know something, I just said, I don't know the answer to that, but I'm going to find it out for you. And I never expected anything when I showed up, because I was young and inexperienced. And so I was very grateful for every opportunity that I got. And, I just worked hard because of it. And, I'm very thankful to my dad. I think he helped build a lot of confidence in me. And so I wasn't scared to show up and to be in an unfamiliar territory. And it was very, I guess it was an interesting call when I called him and told him, "Hey, Dad, I want to quit my job where I'm being paid a salary and go work at this job that I've never done before, and it's 100% commission." So he is very fiscally conservative, and he was like, "What? You're going to quit your job and go work somewhere where you don't get paid a salary?" And it was just mind-boggling to him. But at the end, he was the one who convinced me to take the leap of faith. And he said, if you're going to do it, you're going to succeed. And I know you're going to succeed because you're going to work hard at it until you succeed. So that really gave me a lot of confidence. And I think that really helped. And it helped me break some of those barriers and break into commercial real estate. And then throughout my career, I mean, it's definitely been tough being a female. I feel like sometimes a man could have said the same thing, and people are like, "Oh, well, that's right." And I was like, "Wait a minute, I just said that. Didn't you hear me?" And I guess, where I've kind of succeeded, and when I felt like there wasn't a place at the table for me, I found somewhere else that there was a place. And so, like I said, with retail, there were more women that were in that, sector of the business. And so that made it easier for me to, find other women that were mentors and helped me out. Also just volunteering with the junior league. I mean, that's something I got involved in probably a year after I got into commercial real estate. And the things that I felt like I wasn't learning at work, I was learning volunteering and working on events and projects with the junior league. And I worked on 4 of the governor's inaugural balls and just got to do so many different things and learn so many things and meet people and meet restaurateurs, which, I later crossed paths with in business. And so, again, when I felt like there wasn't a place for me, I found somewhere that there was, and I, grew my skill set.
So when you made that note that you've had male counterparts say something where you say it and it's heard one way, but a male in the room says it, and all of a sudden everybody's ears perk up. You're like, wait, I just said that. Thinking about what Priscilla was saying earlier about how important and how hard it is sometimes to be heard, heard in those roles. How I would love to hear from you all. How did you establish yourself as that voice in the room, as that powerful voice around the topic that you are a subject matter expert? Is there a situation that you can recall where, you know, it was kind of the turning point of like, if I don't speak up, if I don't amplify, or in Tina's words, be more assertive, you know, my voice is going to get drowned out. I would, you know, I'm just curious to know if there's anything in particular in y'all's background that you can remember. And Priscilla, I'll ask you first.
Sure. I believe that there's a rite of passage in this industry. And I do believe that there's a recognition of having earned your salt and having paid your dues. So I started out in construction with the United States Army Corps of Engineers back in 1986. And I cut my teeth on being out in the field. So I have been there for concrete pours and when piles were being driven. I've been out in bad weather. I've walked on roofs. I've climbed ladders. I've been in mechanical rooms. So part of it, I believe, is that I earned that respect. So when I talked, I'm speaking from a place of experience. And as a manager over the last 15 years and working in leadership, I've tried to lead by example. So when I had a maintenance group that was one of the teams that reported to me, and we had monthly safety meetings, and we would take that opportunity to work on a project, I would join in. I would bring my work clothes, and if we were painting the building, I would paint too. And so once it was perceived that there was nothing that these folks were going to do that I was unwilling to do, then I was brought into it. And then the other piece about getting that powerful voice and to get that respect is to be able to be candid. So you could talk to me, and in some places it may have been considered disrespectful, and I wouldn't cower. Now I would check you. Don't be, you know, fooled. I will check bad behavior, but you have an opportunity to be candid with me in how you want to communicate. So I set up that kind of space where we can interact, but I have earned my salt. I have paid my dues. And so from that standpoint, to be able to speak with authority, I can talk about a roof or a roof product or effervescence for Tina if we're having issues with CMU and concrete pours and all that, because I've done that. And so I think part of it is, have you experienced this? Do you come with those credentials to be able to warrant that consideration that you speak from a place of experience and expertise?
I love that. And I think that that's true with a lot of industries is, you know, it's hard to speak to something if you've never done it or you've never been part of it, right? But I appreciate the recognition of, you know, not just the opportunity to speak to something, but also to earn that respect of being out there. And someday I'm going to have to ask you about what it's like to do, you know, all of the work that you did in the early days, because it sounds like there's a lot of stories you could share in a different conversation, especially in rough weather. Christina, what about you?
So I guess, you know, I don't think that being the loudest person is you know, the way to be the most powerful person. And so I try to kind of assess the situation and observe, and then you know, interact where I feel is necessary. And I have always tried to come prepared. So in business meetings and things like that, you know, knowing what I'm talking about and being knowledgeable and earning respect that way, and being, you know, the person that's the go-to, because you know what you're talking about. And And so I guess I'm just a little bit more quiet at first and kind of figure out where when I'm at the table, where I need to be at the table and where I'm sitting. And so I think that has been really helpful for me, just to not come in, like a bulldog or a bull in a china shop and be the loudest person to say, I know what I'm talking about, but just to kind of observe and, then add from there.
That's great. Tina, what about you?
I would echo what both of them have said in terms of, I think, my personal experience has been a combination somewhat of physical experience, but definitely knowledge and being prepared and having that expertise and understanding and kind of know your stuff. And I will say the other thing that has helped me is when I have been on the periphery, because that was my role at the time. I wasn't at the table, so to speak, but I was maybe participating in something as a guest, or I'm thinking of committee work and things like that, where I wasn't the primary player, and being able to really listen, but then engage when it's appropriate, and not being afraid to engage. And even if it's asking a question or whatnot, I think I like to, I think just being, I guess in the work there tends to be a lot of people that are kind of like flies on the wall. They don't really want to step in and get their feet wet or do some of the dirty work, so to speak, to do the actual work. And so I think when those opportunities present to actually engage, and if you know what you're doing, and ideally you have some experience too, I mean, that just lends credibility, and I think that helps as well.
Absolutely. And I appreciate that all of you have talked very specifically about the respect piece of, having that experience of being that subject matter expert, or the person in the room who, has been there, done that, has the t-shirt and can talk about, these things from a place of experience and understanding. So I think that is an important part. Like you said, it's Christina, it's not just about being the loudest voice, but being the voice of an expert. So I think that's a really important thing as we navigate sitting at those tables. Tina, you said something earlier that I kind of want to circle back to when you were talking about your early days with your female allies, and how small the group was and how it's gotten much bigger. I think that women tend to professionally, regardless of what industry we're in, we tend to find, allies in the workplace or in our professional groups, in our volunteer groups, that sort of thing. But I'm curious to hear from all of you if you feel it's necessary to have male allies in these workplaces, in your professional groups, in your volunteer groups. And is it something, if you feel that way, which you might not, but if you feel that way, should we feel empowered and encouraged to seek out those allies in support of our career? So Christina, I'd like to have you chat about it first.
Sure. So, I don't think it's necessary or, something that you have to have that male counterpart, but I think it's good to have, just so you can have their perspective and their point of view, and you just see things differently and have a different perspective. So I, in general, just try to surround myself with good people and strong people, leaders, do-gooders, and whoever they are, whether they're male or female. I just try to surround myself with people that are smarter than me and stronger than me, and that they lift me up and help me, and I help them too. But that's kind of what I do. But I think it's better to have strong women that you are your counterparts, because they help build each other up stronger together.
I totally agree. Tina, what about you, especially in your professional groups?
Yeah, I would say, I think if you're whether it's an organization or, your company where it is male dominated, and if you are that minority, it does help to have a male ally, in the sense of not that you need it from a feeling confident as a person, but if you want to advance, having a male ally that is going to be supportive of you and suggest your name for an opportunity or whatnot. I think for me, that has made a difference, mainly because there weren't any women in leadership roles above me to be that ally for me. Like, so in that specific kind of venue, for me, having those male allies, whether it was my direct boss or, like I said, in the organization, the Masonry Society I belong with, if it weren't for them, I don't think I would have had the opportunities for leadership, at least at the time or as quickly as I did without them. But again, that's in that setting where there really weren't any females to be that ally for me. They were more on a peer-to-peer level, and that's a different kind of thing. But in terms of advancement and in an organization, they have helped me a lot.
Priscilla?
So there's a hymn that one of the verses is, "Let the work that I do speak for me." And I do believe that good work gets noticed. And so while I don't necessarily believe that you have to recruit an ally, I do think that good work gets noticed. And I think that that is without gender on occasion, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think when you operate from a standpoint of always doing your best, being prepared, knowing your product, knowing your role, knowing what you're supposed to do, there are people that are watching, just like there are people that are watching when you don't do something. And but I think the difference is that ally, if it's a man or woman or whomever, senses another spark. There's something in addition to that good work. And I think what that is potential.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think if we were in an environment with everyone was looking at your body of work and then also looked at potential, which I don't think that we as a gender always get the benefit of that, then that ally would automatically see it. You know, he would see that you've got it. But I don't think it hurts. I definitely think it helps. But I don't necessarily believe that you've got to search for it. I believe that it will come to you based on an establishment of your work product. Let the work that you do speak for you. And then them seeing that potential, that ability for you to do something else or go farther.
I think potential is one of those challenges sometimes, especially for women who, you know, when they're seeking out roles in their job searching. I think the statistic is something like, you know, most men, the majority of men will apply for a job even if they only have 60% of the requirements of the qualifications, whereas women, it's like 98 or 99% before they'll feel confident or comfortable enough applying for a role. And I think that then sets you for an opportunity of you're not showing your potential, right? Because that extra 40% is the potential that somebody could see in you and say, you know, okay, you don't know everything, but you know enough, we can get you there. And I think that that's a really an important thing to be thoughtful about. I was also thinking too, you know, Tina, when you were talking about, you know, how when you first started, there weren't a lot of women leaders in your industry. And Christina, we know that there are definitely not a lot in your industry with those numbers. Now that all three of you are in, you know, pretty prominent positions, you've been doing the work you've been doing for a long time. Do you find that you are more empowered or encouraged to bring more women into your circles, into your workplace? You know, when if a young professional, a female young professional reaches out to you and says, I'm interested in X, Y, and Z, is that something that you latch onto and really kind of want to build, like you said, Christina, we're stronger together, let's get more strong women in these roles and lift them up. So I'm curious to hear, kind of how each of you are utilizing that empowerment in the work that you do. And Priscilla, I'll ask you first.
Absolutely. So I try to be a mentor to anyone that says, listen, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? But I also try to be very candid in that conversation, because in a role that is non-traditionally occupied by women, there are sacrifices that need to be made and choices that you need to make in terms of getting married, having children, raising your children, because what time they pour concrete, what time they place concrete, because concrete is placed. They place concrete at 7 o'clock in the morning. And that's when your children are getting up out of bed, or you're getting them ready for school. So, but the rite of passage indicates that you've got to put that work in the trailer. You've got to start in the trailer in civil engineering. So I want women to come and talk to me so that I can tell them the real deal. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm going to tell it what it is. A friend of mine had an issue. I told her, you're going to have to bulk up. Eat your Wheaties, you're going to have to bulk up. So I try to give sound advice, but women who are interested in that, my door is always open, because there was no one there for me to talk to. And so I have made that commitment that I will be that sounding board and that resource. So absolutely, always welcome the opportunity.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. I don't have an interest, but I want to reach out to you and hear what you have to say about, pouring concrete. Sorry, placing concrete. I've already learned something today. So thank you for letting me know. The construction team will be so thrilled with me now. Christina, what about you? What about in the work that you do?
Sure. I again try to help anybody who asks. Professionally, I'm involved in TCREW, which is the Triangle Commercial Real Estate Women's Network. And through that, we have scholarships at colleges that we provide to local colleges or universities. And so I've been to some of those events, helping to mentor some of the girls and ladies that are in the real estate clubs for those universities, and just try to reach out and help them. And especially when some of those folks are in college and trying to apply for jobs, it's really competitive now. Looking back, I'm like, gosh, I probably would have never gotten hired now with having zero experience. I did no internships or anything. And now that's just not the case. And so, when I run across, young women in college at UNC that are trying to get into commercial real estate, I try to, answer questions and help them and make connections for them with companies that I work with.
Thank you. That's amazing. And I agree with you. I think the job market has changed dramatically, especially in the last couple of years. And, that the internships seem to be the thing to do these days. Having an internship certainly helps you get your foot in the door straight out of college. So it's great that you've been a resource to a lot of undergrads in that way.
And I also try to talk to my friends, their kids, and just tell them about what I do. Because like I said, when I was young, I had no idea what commercial real estate was. And I knew people sold houses, but I didn't know that people worked on buildings. And so like my friends' young kids, I'm like, do you know what I do? I put tenants in the shopping centers and help people find spaces to sell things. And so I try to start young.
The future of Raleigh commercial real estate is starting with you, Christina. You're starting them young. The
Exactly.
graduating class of commercial real estate agents would be great. Tina, what about you?
I would say that, when being on the executive committee and now as president, I really have tried to to put women first where I can in terms of opportunity. So, somebody will be looking for a chair for a certain committee or, a leadership role. And that's something I really do make an effort to do, is to look for the women first. Not that they're not the men too, but if I can, I'm going to pull the women up first. And so I really have tried to do that when I do have those opportunities in those roles. And I think talking about the profession, like Christina was talking about, the different opportunities that are there are important as well. But I think it is, whenever I can, try to do that. And I think the other way I look out, or I think about the female allies I have, there are a few of us women in, like I said, doing codes and standards development, other places where I'll see the same folks over and over again. And I will say we do try to support each other that way too, in terms of whether it be work opportunities or dealing with people or personalities or those times when, things are not appropriate or whatever it may be, because we all face these challenges, and having being there for others and then they're there for me too has been another way to try to support women that I've tried to do.
That's wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you all so much. I want to be mindful of time. We only have a couple of minutes left. So speaking of empowering women, I want to take this opportunity to allow you to share any parting words of inspiration or empowerment or motivation to our guests, most especially any women out there who might be considering career paths in the work that you all do, or just are facing, the obstacles ahead as they traverse their career path. And would love to hear if you have anything you would like to share. So Christina, I'm going to ask you first. Do you have any words of wisdom to share with our audience today?
Sure. So I guess I would just like to say to be yourself and to be confident in yourself. I don't feel like I've ever had to flirt or be somebody I'm not to get to the table. And so I feel like, just being who you are and being confident in who you are. And so two things that I wanted to share. One is my dad, a long time ago, he gave me, for Christmas one year, he gave me this little plaque, and it says, be yourself, an original is better than a copy. And I think my dad was just checking the box that he was giving me this for Christmas, but it really has stood out. I mean, this was in my room when I was growing up, and it's always been something that I've kind of gone back to as one of my favorite quotes is like, I'm going to be me. And if you don't like it, that's okay, but I'm not going to change who I am to fit into what you think you need me to be. I'm going to be myself. And then the other thing I wanted to share, my other little quote I have here, my friend and mentor and now my colleague again, she and I went to see Oprah last January and went to Oprah's 2020 vision tour, which I don't think any of us saw the vision of 2020 that was coming like 6 weeks
and I don't
later.
think Oprah saw it. I mean, Oprah's seen a lot of things.
Oprah saw it either. I think she got there almost all of her 2020 vision tours, but I think she had to cut like 4 of them. But anyway, we drove to Charlotte, and there was 15,000 women packed in the little Hornets Arena, whatever they call it, the Beehive. And it was phenomenal to hear her speak and all the different women that spoke. And just about her just journey and how she got to where she was, and all the people that, tried to push her down, and she was confident and stood up. But anyway, they gave this little quote that was in one of the gift bags that we got, and it says, nourish what makes you feel confident, connected, and contented. An opportunity will rise to meet you. And I truly believe that if you do something that you feel connected with and happy and you're confident in yourself, the opportunities are going to arise for you to be successful.
I love that. That's great. Thank you for sharing that, Christina. Tina, do you have any parting words of wisdom?
Yeah, I would advise to be engaged. Like when you show up, when you're there, if you're present, participate. I think, you know, it comes out of confidence and being who you are to be able to do that. But I think it's important. I don't go to stuff to sit there and just spend some time, right? I'm not trying to just earn a paycheck, so to speak, by just passing through. If I'm going to go or participate in, or if I'm going to be at something, I want to participate and be engaged. And I think when you're engaged in whatever form that looks like, I think, to Priscilla's point, people notice you when you are engaged and you want to contribute, and having confidence in yourself that you do have something to contribute, whatever circumstance it is. So if you're present, participate.
Love it. Priscilla?
So two things I want to share. The one is, like that hymn says, let the work I've done speak for me. Allow your work product to be your legacy. Let that tell your story. And then recognize your worth. Know it ahead of time. Don't expect someone else to validate who you are and what you can contribute. Know going in, and that way, what they say is an opinion, because you've already recognized and understand and realize what your worth is.
That's wonderful. Amazing words of empowerment and wisdom. I wish I knew all three of you earlier in my career. I could have used those things a long time ago. But I think it's important to hear, regardless of where you are, whether you're fresh out of college or maybe you're looking at graduating high school, or maybe you're thinking about changing careers. It's all really important and valid advice. And so I am so grateful that you're willing to share that with all of us. We are officially an hour in, so we are wrapping up, but I want to say a very special thanks to our sponsors for Women Build this year: Credit Suisse, Duke Raleigh Hospital, the Ivy Community Foundation, TK Creations, and Basics for their continued support of this endeavor. And hopefully we'll be out on the Build site soon. And also, again, want to thank all of you, Christina, Tina, Priscilla. Thank you so much for your time and your energy and your wisdom today. It was wonderful to connect with all of you. I cannot wait till we can be back on the Build site together, and look forward to the day where we can continue our conversations in person. So thank you all so much. We're so grateful for you, and thank you all for joining us today. We hope to see you at our third Power Talk next month. Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you.